Hello, welcome back to IVFU. Today, I can't wait for you to meet the hilarious Tara Clancy. She's a storyteller, she's an author, and she's a host of the famous Moth Radio Hour, which is a series of live storytelling events across the U.S. and the world. Tara is also a mother of two, with one on the way, and a bucket of surprises at every turn. We're going to kick it all off at a live show of the Moth in Portland, Oregon, where you'll hear Tara performing her story called Lesbian Baby Making 101. She's giving herself a very unusual pep talk before trying to get pregnant. Let's just say there's no soft music or scented candles in this meditation.
I'm in love with you. Like I'm walking around the apartment and I'm going, let's go, baby. Let's go. Pregnancy in the clutch, right? And I actually go over to the mirror and I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I start like puffing out my shirt. And obviously I'm imagining myself pregnant, but what I'm really doing is I'm imagining somebody else seeing me pregnant, right? And I'm imagining what they're gonna think and what they're looking at, what they're gonna look at me and think. And so what I'm doing, and I'm totally unaware of it in the moment, is I'm going, you talking to me? You talking to the pregnant lady? You talking to me? It's like other women, they go home, they knit booties. I'm De Niro in Taxi Driver. Anyway.
Hello, Tara Clancy. It's so nice to see you.
You too, honey. You too.
You too, honey. Nice to see you. Always nice to hear you as well. Your voice is a huge part of your persona, as you have talked about many times. And what you described there was that you were the member of your partnership that was physically, medically. You were 32. It was just not likely that your wife at the time, who was 42, was going to be able to carry the baby.
Right. My second son.
Right. And the doctor gave you a night to go home and really contemplate if you could pull this off. And you describe it as like psyching yourself up for a varsity, like a high school, varsity basketball game?
Softball or basketball, either whatever lesbian equivalent. But field hockey would work. The lesbians will know what I'm talking about. Right. Like that was the only point of reference I had to hype myself up was like the thing that I would do, before like the varsity championship night. You were like, let's go. Like it was like the most like aggressive. Right. Yeah. Like whatever. And
you got like a pep rally in your apartment in front of the mirror. Yeah.
Except I'm doing it for pregnancy, like that. Like I was ready to walk in there and be like, let's do it, motherfucker. Like make me pregnant.
Exactly. And so we met doing the Moth in Ithaca, New York. It was May 4th, 2018. I'm not sure about the fourth part. I don't think it was the 5th because that's Cinco de Mayo, and we might not remember it if it had been Cinco de Mayo. So so the fact that we remember it, I think it's May 4th. So a little intro, I'm going to say what I think and you're going to correct me or elaborate.
Okay.
So you have two kids. Yeah. You have one on the way, right?
Yes. Yeah, I can keep track of them, I think. That's
good.
Right. Yes.
Okay. You're gay.
Yeah.
You have been married twice.
I'm married a second time. Yes.
You are a writer, a bartender, a live storyteller. I don't know if you're still a bartender. This is where your corrections maybe come in.
I'm not a bartender anymore. No,
you put that.
I mean, but in my heart, I'll always be a bartender.
I believe everyone should spend some time doing food or beverage service in their lifetime. Because,
I'm born and raised in the bar business. That's like a big thing that I
saw that on your website.
Yeah. So I'll hold on to it. I'm a third generation bartender. My mother, my grandmother.
There you go. So it's in your blood.
Yes.
And your published credits are in the New York Times Magazine, The Nation, Paris Review Daily. So some pretty fancy stuff there, and a book, The Clancys of Queens.
Yeah, I published a book. I'm an author.
You're an author?
I'm an author. That's right.
I'm from New York, so your accent is sort of like in my memory of my life, but I've never had that accent. But it's very welcoming and familiar to me. So I appreciate
good.
that.
I won't get rid of it. I won't get rid of it. People try to get rid of it, and I decided to not get rid of mine. And
you can't.
You can't.
No.
It's just like why? But
Right.
the world would be boring if everybody got rid of their accents. But I think you got me down. Yeah, I published a lot of shit, and I write, and I'm a host of the Moth. I've told a lot of stories of the Moth, and I host the main stage shows.
Yes.
So that's how I met you, because you did a Moth main stage show.
I did a Moth main stage. It was intense. It was great. So I wanted to start with that clip because this is called IVFU. So it's about all the different ways of getting pregnant, trying to get pregnant, sometimes not getting pregnant, and all the emotions that go along with that, hence the FU part.
Yeah.
And so what I love about that clip is you're clearly showing us who you are, what you look like, how you present yourself, how people interpret you when they see you. Yeah. And the fact that you were going to be pregnant shocked the hell out of you, but also kind of sent you into a bit of an identity swirl for a while there, it sounds like. So I was just curious, how do you describe yourself sort of personally and physically? Are you glamorous? Are you feminine? Are you butch? What's your angle on everything?
No, I'm definitely, I like butch. I like butch. Some of the younger queers, they don't like butch anymore. I like butch. But yeah, so I'm a masculine presenting person, and I wear a lot of suits, and I'm into my suits. I got a cufflink collection that should really give me away.
You're old school.
I'm old school.
You're not old,
I got
but you're old school.
Squares collection and cufflink collection. Right. But then also, I'm from Queens, so I also have a Jordan collection. But either way, what I don't have a collection of is dresses. I don't. I don't.
Do you have any dresses? Do you own a dress?
No. God,
okay.
No.
Yeah. Why should you? Right.
No, I don't have any dresses. They don't look good on me. But as this masculine presenting person, the idea, of being pregnant was, everyone was shocked that I was even really willing to do it,
And I know you use the word butch, but you present as a woman. I mean, I don't look at you and think that you're a man. Maybe some people do. I don't know. But are you a she, her? Do you feel?
Yeah, I do. I do, which, but at the same time.
That didn't define it. Obviously.
No.
Were you more masculine as a kid? Did you ever think of having kids when you were a kid?
I did. I did think of having kids. I didn't think about the fact that I might be expected to carry those kids.
Yeah. But so knowing that you were gay and knowing that medically you wouldn't be able to have a kid in a heteronormative relationship, how did that desire to have a kid, how did you imagine that?
I don't think I thought it that far through. I really didn't. And then I kind of put it to bed and was like a wacko, fucking, crazy bartending, rock and roll nut job. I never thought that I would be pregnant. But yeah, when my former wife and I, decided to have kids, she wanted to be pregnant more than anything, so we went right into that fertility clinic. And it's different. It's different for queers because you're there giggling and making out in the waiting room and all happy and shit. Right.
It's like a date.
Finally. Right. It's like a date. There's nothing quote unquote wrong with you, you, in fact, you're happy because you probably tapped into your 401k or whatever, get the money. You're we did it. We got the money. We got a credit card, whatever it is, you made the money happen. Then you're there giggling and making out. And I would remember all these poor straight people, who we would always be like, God, maybe we shouldn't be so happy while we're in here. We feel bad. And the poor guys, the guys would be looking down and everyone knew that he was about to go in that little room and jack off. And everyone knew. I don't know if you remember this from Fertility World.
They had backed off and it didn't work. And then everyone knew that, which is the side of that. Yeah. Yeah. That's so interesting. Yeah. For the straight couples, we're at the end of our rope. This is the beginning of the worst period of our entire lives. And for you guys, it's like a honeymoon. We're going to make a baby at the fertility clinic.
And I mean, really for a million reasons. And we have the legal, right, to, I mean, with my first son, my oldest son is going to be 11 this year. When we were in the process of making him, we couldn't be legally married in this country. We were really concerned about my ability to be named on his birth certificate. So like those were our problems. Right. But we couldn't be there. Like that, no one could stop us at the door and be like, lesbians out, like,
right.
We're allowed. They were like, you got your 20 grand, you're in.
That's true.
Such a different experience.
Yeah. So how did you meet Shauna, your first wife?
At my family bar.
Oh, so you're just picking up ladies. She was also a bartender.
Yes, when I turned 21, my mom was a bartender there. I grew up there my whole life. And then when I was 21, I started working at the bar, and Shauna worked there, and so that's how we met. And we were like the only two lesbians in this pretty rough, blue collar dive bar.
Yeah,
that was owned by my family, and so that was enough. That was enough.
Some bonding happened right there. So yes. I mean, we're not talking about Astoria here. Right. We're talking about
Broad channel. Yeah, but you're right. I always say that to people because people think Queens and they think Astoria. And I say, no, I'm from the Archie Bunker section of Queens.
Yes.
And then it makes perfect sense.
Not just like gay actors living in Astoria.
No,
there's a whole other group of people there. Yeah, exactly. And then were you surprised when she wanted a baby? When did you guys talk about having a baby?
No, we right away. In fact, we were married in 2007. We tried.
Was it a domestic partnership or were you?
Yes. But, we did the ceremony.
Did the whole thing.
I said, we're married because we feel that we are married. Yeah. And then we did IUIs. So we bought a whole bunch of sperm from California Cryobank. And we were like, all right, we're going to do the IUIs because when we started, she was 37. Okay. I was 27. She's 10 years older than me. And so we didn't think, 37, all right, it might be okay. We went in and they were like, yep, everything looks fine. You can do IUIs. And we had did 3 or 4 of them and it didn't work. And then the spunk is so expensive.
Yeah.
It really is. And it's $2 a pop for IUIs. And so it got expensive quick. And she was pretty dejected because she was like, whoa, I didn't think we'd have any trouble.
Yeah.
So we took a year off.
Was she learning that her age mattered at that point, or had she kind of known that her age? Because I didn't know age mattered until I knew.
No, she didn't know. Yeah, she didn't. And then all of a sudden we were like these crazy people that went around telling everyone, like, what a terrible thing. If you invited us to a party, we were like, how old are you? Are you 36? You should try to have a baby right now. They're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? We're like, listen, it might be over for you. Like, people were like, we're never inviting you to any more parties. Yeah. Because, right? It's like, it was shocking that first time. And so many, especially in your 30s. I think people thought 40 for some reason. That was maybe, but you're in your 30s. It's fine. And you go in there and like, no, 35, man, that's the cliff. Like either you're lucky or you're not. We were like, wow.
I know. It's crazy.
So she did the 3 IUIs, didn't work. She was really dejected, took a break, and she had some work stuff going on for a year. And then, she's like, all right, let's do it again. And she did it again and it didn't work. 4th time. And then we were allowed down to our last 2 vials. And I really said to her, I really wanted to try one more time. And she was like, all right. And it worked. So my firstborn son was IUI.
Wow.
Yes. I mean, and interestingly, my first wife and I got married before marriage was legal in New York, before marriage was legal federally, for sure. It was only once she was 6 months pregnant with my firstborn son that we could, which was funny. We were like, this is a shotgun wedding, right? We had to literally go to the courthouse with her with this huge belly because it was finally legal in New York.
So it became legal while she was pregnant with your son.
Yes, but this was what was crazy. Wow. It became the quickest thing that the then Governor Patterson of New York could do, right, was to say New York will start recognizing marriages from other jurisdictions. You couldn't just very quickly say, now you can walk down to the courthouse because that has to go through a legal process. But what he could say was, if you are married elsewhere, be that Canada, be that Massachusetts, right, which was one of the first states,
right,
or at the time, Connecticut, which was ahead of everybody who knew Connecticut. You could get married there and New York would recognize it. So we had to drive with her 6 months pregnant for 2 hours to Connecticut.
Oh my gosh.
To get married, to come back to New York so that my name would be on his birth certificate. If we were not married, my name would not have been on his birth certificate at birth. We would have had to amend it afterward. So we did a lot of hoops. And I think it's interesting. Here's an interesting fact that puts it in perspective. My firstborn son, who will be 11 this summer, was probably one of the first 100 children ever in New York who had 2 women listed on his birth certificate.
Wow.
That's how brand new that was.
Yeah.
I had to go to the hospital and say, do you have the new form that doesn't say mother, father, that says /parent1 and /parent2?
Right.
And they were like, yeah, we just got them in. And I was like, great, because she's due like tomorrow. So, it was like everything was like right at the,
Wow, a nail biter.
It was a nail biter.
To the end.
When we got together and got married and she wanted to kiss, I was like, okay, like, all right, now how do we do this? And we were the first of all of our friends. And it was mostly because she was 10 years older than me. There wasn't a lot of info 11 years ago, and there wasn't a lot of people. So my son everyone was like, he was the first of our group.
Wow.
I can't tell you how many people came to my house that I never met before. And we spent 2 or 3 hours with them, teaching them what was IVF, what was IUI, like they were starting from nothing.
Right. When a woman and a woman love each other.
Right. Right.
It's a little more complicated when it's two birds and there's no bee. Yeah.
But what an amazing difference,
Well, it's interesting to me too, because even at that time you had, Melissa Etheridge, you had Rosie O'Donnell. I mean, you had these lesbian superstars that were having kids, but maybe it just seemed like this unattainable. Yeah. If you have $1 billion, you buy David Crosby's sperm and you just do whatever. Yeah. So I think probably at the much more ground level, people couldn't envision how they were going to pull that off.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder when we finally get some real numbers to see the uptick that happens at about 11 or 12 years ago, because like now it's just so much more. Every queer person I know has got a kid, or they're making kids. It's not a big deal. No one needs to call me and come over and like buy dinner and sit across from who I've never met. That doesn't happen anymore. They can get that information from anywhere. But we counseled just so many people, and people were unabashed because they wanted it so bad.
Right.
When she was pregnant with my first son and she walked around with that belly, people were, sometimes it was rude, sometimes it was kind, but people would just ask us. People were like, how did you do that? You kind of forget that even 11 years ago that we were pioneering something. It was still new. And
yeah, absolutely. It's funny. Most of the gay couples that I'm friends with that have kids, the kids are all, they're like 4 to 8 years old.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah,
right. So my son was 11. They always say he was like the prototype. And now you can't stop me. I mean, it's just if I meet a woman, I'm like, do you want a baby?
It's happening. So Ray, it took us a few tries, but essentially it was IUI. With Harry, quite a different story, as we heard a bit in that clip. So, you tell it obviously in a very funny and entertaining way, but how did that go? What were the emotions behind that? Really, when you first you found out that you were going to have to carry that baby, which seems to sort of go against your entire identity of yourself.
Yes.
And then when you found out you couldn't carry the baby. Right. So what was that like?
The irony. I mean, in some ways it's not, right? I was like, of course I can't have a baby. What were you fucking thinking?
At least something makes sense and all.
Right. I mean, he looked at me, of course, there's something wrong. I was like, of course.
Right.
And he's like, you have a fertility problem. I said to him, I know I have a fertility problem. It's called being a lesbian. What am I paying you for?
Right.
And he did not laugh. And he's like, no, you have another one. And I was like, oh, it wasn't the end of the world. Now people who know more about this stuff, right? I have polycystic ovarian syndrome.
PCOS.
Yeah. Like, and there's PCOS is still misunderstood. There's like thin PCOS, but you can also have it under different circumstances. But he was just like, your rate of miscarriage is higher. Your the difficulty in getting pregnant. We're going to have to do IVF instead of, IUI for sure. And we go for the IVF. And I had my retrieval and I produced like 36 eggs, which is not good. Oh, it's good in one regard,
right?
Bad that it will maybe kill you. This is one of the side effects for people with polycystic ovarian syndrome, is that you will just have like this massive amount of eggs, which really it's the 1% like fatal.
Wow.
Yeah. So what happens is your body thinks it's pregnant with 36 babies and builds up this fluid, and the fluid sits on can actually affect your breathing.
Oh my
So
goodness.
it was like the next day after retrieval and then those coming days, I looked like I was 6 months pregnant in 24 hours, but it was all fluid.
Oh my goodness.
And that fluid sits on your lungs. So it's like an emergency.
Yeah.
So it was pretty bad.
Wow.
So I nearly died. Then I didn't. Ta-da, I'm still here. Right. We kind of reached the end of that story. But
I'm glad that's the end of that story. That's okay.
Right. And so it took about a month or something to recover. They're like, now you can't go forward, even though you've done your retrieval. They can't implant it. And the doctor's like, wait a minute. He's like, what if Shauna carried this egg? And I know it now, but that seems that's a very common thing in the queer community for one person to donate to another person. But at the time, he had never suggested that before.
Wow. Again, another first. Yeah.
Whatever. No one had mentioned it to him as a thing they wanted. But it really would be ideal. And I jumped through the fucking ceiling. I mean, I was like saved by the bell, I was like,
I mean, it's almost the best of both worlds because you pass on your genetic material.
Right. And I was like, here she is, take her right now, do it.
And Shauna must have been thrilled too. Yes,
she was, because she loved being pregnant and she was happy to do it again. It was just her eggs that were, kind of like on the fritz. Yeah. And then I couldn't, honestly, for me, and that's, it's a joke in the story, but it is true. It was a big relief.
Yeah. It's so interesting because part of the emotional struggle in IVF is you feel like you're failing as a woman because you feel like this is one of your jobs. You're supposed to be able to carry a child. And so when you find out that you can't or you're struggling, you hit these very hard walls of, well, am I broken? Am I defective? And
I know the effect that it's had on other women, particularly, women who, like you say, like have so much stock in that ability to be pregnant themselves or to be, and not even just to be a mother, but to be pregnant. Right.
Right.
And I didn't have any of that.
Well, and I think it's a very positive message because really what you're saying is I am Tara Clancy, whether I carry a child, whether I don't carry a child, I'm still the person that I am. And I think that that's the same message for someone who does want to carry a child. If they can't, or they're running into trouble, I think it's important to hold on to the fact that you are still you. You are still a fully realized you. Whether you can carry a baby or not does not affect who you are defined, what you are defined by. It may affect your identity if you've always seen yourself as a pregnant person, I guess, but it doesn't make you broken. It doesn't mean that you're defective. It just means here's things you can do and here's something that's not really working, So anyway, I just think that's interesting.
But while the act or the being of pregnant doesn't affect, I also do notice that I have a biological clock and a drive to have children.
Oh, that's interesting.
And like I had that drive then, and I had that was what that drive was when I was like, I would do this if forced, forced. There's no other, but because I really do want this other child. And then now, if you flash forward to now when I'm 40 and remarried, and my wife now didn't have children when we met, but wanted them. And that was like her only first date question to me. She was like, I know you have 2 kids and I'm cool with being a step parent. I'm having children in my life, but I need to know, would you have another one? Because that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I felt this drive. Like I was like, oh, I do. I feel like I want another baby. And then I was like, oh, I'm forgetting that I have the same biological clock. Like butch as I am, there is this part of my body that's going, you're at the end, quick, like you're at the end, make another one, right?
Wow.
It surprised the shit out of me.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that.
Because you assume that those two things are tied together. Like the biological clock, the need, the timing is part of the physical need to be pregnant. But for you, it wasn't. It was wanting to be a mom again. Have a new baby. Yeah.
And it was like intense enough that I was like, oh, I think this is a little bit, right? This is a little bit more. This is a little evolutionary, right? This is a little coming from the part of me that knows I'm at the end of this clock. And so that's why I want to do it. And I want to do it now.
That's interesting. Yeah. Like the remnants of a previous time of human development. Yeah, exactly. I just have to pause for 1 second because I need to tell you about this podcast that I'm a little bit obsessed with. You will be obsessed with it too. It's called If These Ovaries Could Talk. You may have heard of it if you've heard episode 1 of this season of IVFU, because I had the hosts on for a fantastic interview. And it's a podcast where two lesbians chat about making babies and non-traditional families and what it's like to live as an LGBTQ family in a world built for the straights. But let me tell you something. I am one of the straights, and I feel so in tune with this podcast, and it's so relatable because anyone that's ever felt like an outsider and had to fight for normalcy and acceptance will relate to this podcast. It's hosted by my new best friends, Jamie Kelton and Robin Hopkins. They are hysterical and totally down to earth, and they go in depth every week with guests about their hopes, fears, setbacks. The whole mission of this is to normalize, elevate, and celebrate non-traditional families, while also confirming that they're just like other parents, like yelling at their kids because they don't have their shoes on and they're 25 minutes late for school. So check out episode 1 of IVFU this season to learn more, and check out If These Ovaries Could Talk. I just can't say enough good things about it and about Robin and Jamie, and find out more at ovariestalk.com.
We were on my second one, right? That's where
Right.
Right. All right. And then the only glitch that we had, which may be on the IVF podcast, we can talk about a little bit because people get it, was that they could not figure out how to bill it. They tried to bill us up as if I was her egg donor.
Oh.
We were by then legally married. And my fertility clinic, and I will give them credit for this, called them and went to bat. And they were like, these are a married couple. This specimen belongs to them both. One can't donate it to the other.
Right.
Because this is what makes the difference. Maybe they had 2 women before or something, but they never had ones that were legally married in the state of New York, which meant that they were like, okay, you did one half of an IVF. And now she's going to do the other half. Now, in essence, it's the same amount of money. It's not 2 IVFs. It's one IVF that was split between 2 people.
Right. The reciprocal IVF.
All right. How about this? We were the first couple ever to get a health insurance company, a major health insurance company, to cover it.
Wow. You guys are real trailblazers. That's amazing.
Yeah. In the end, the health insurance covers it. It's amazing. She gets pregnant, and her pregnancy is just like totally fine. Her IVF with, my embryo worked the first time.
Right.
The birth itself was exciting.
Well, that's my next audio clip that I have queued up here, Tara.
Oh, all right. Yes.
All right. Let's take a listen.
And I get a wheelchair and I wheel it over to her and I put her into the wheelchair and I go flying up the hospital into the maternity ward triage area. It's like the waiting area, right? And I push her in there and I take one look at the receptionist in there. I'm like, I do not have time to sign any paperwork. You just got to point me right now to an OR. And in the time it has taken me to say that one sentence and to turn away from my wife, when I turn back, she is up out of the wheelchair. She's got one hand on each of the armrests. Her legs are spread. Her shirt is up. Her tits are out. Her pants are down. Her ass is out. There's pee. There's blood. She's like, ah!
I love that. So what was that birth experience like? Was that heightened for theatrical effect, or was that pretty much?
No, it really wasn't. It was.
I'm assuming you were not laughing at the time, or
I was definitely
so insane.
Not. Oh my God, I was not laughing at the time. No, yeah. So she pretty much almost had this kid in the cab on the way there. Her water broke at like 2 a.m. or something. And he was born an hour and 10 minutes later.
Oh my gosh.
I was asleep at 2 a.m. and I had a second kid at like 3:30 a.m.
Well, you're lucky it was at 2 a.m. because if it had been 2 p.m., you would have gotten stuck on the Van Wyck.
Traffic. Oh my God. We've said that a million times. We were like a million times that we would never have made. And because the cab driver had to go through the red lights.
Wow.
It was bonkers. He was so fast. So that was crazy. And then even more crazy. So my son was born on my second son, June 25th, 2013. June 26th the very next day, so I was still in the hospital, gay marriage was legalized, like officially federally.
Oh my gosh.
That's one of the historic court dates towards the journey, but it was one of the biggest ones. And so it was on every TV and the whole maternity ward, like every TV. And then everyone was like looking at us, like Hasidic women and like, all these other women were like, congratulations, like they were like, wow.
So it was like two celebrations at once.
It was two celebrations, but it really meant like, you're coming home to a more safe world. And I mean, you're my second kid, but you're coming home and there's more protections for our family, for you, it was like, it was huge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Oh, wow. Okay. So next I just want to talk a little bit about divorce.
Sure.
Not all the happy conversations. So when did you guys get divorced? Or let me say this, how old were your children when you guys were getting divorced?
That's a good question. Okay. My sons were like 3 and 6 when I got divorced.
And had all the IVF contributed to that at all?
Oh, that's an interesting question. No, I don't, listen, I would never discount the fact that when so much of your relationship is fighting your government, fighting this society to recognize you, fighting to be pregnant, to have babies, to have your marriage recognized. Like so much of it is that it takes a toll. And I would say that to queer people everywhere, that's something that we just have to deal with. And then you can get lost. You're so busy fighting that when you have nothing left to fight for anymore, you're like, who are we? What's our relationship was built on fighting.
Right. Oh, that's interesting.
And all of a sudden you get to, this would have been, let's say 2017. And when I divorced and things were hunky-dory. I had a book published and she had climbed the ladder. We had 2 kids. Our marriage was completely, fully legal. Things, and you're like, oh, there's nothing, you're not fighting for anything.
All the struggles were gone.
Right. Yeah. And you like, so I wouldn't discount that, but I wouldn't say also, I would say, there was other things. So it was certainly not that, but I think that the toll.
It's interesting too, because as you said, you guys met as the only lesbians in a blue collar Queens bar. Right. So you almost met on a battlefield,
exactly,
us against the world and
us against, and both of us blue collar people who went on to, but we're good friends and we get along. We co-parent really well. And she's friends with my wife.
That's awesome. And now let's come to more present day. So your second wife, Chloe.
That's right.
How did you guys meet?
Oh my God, it's so much fun. So when we separated, my ex and I had missed, because I was with her for 13 years. I had completely missed online dating. Like I've heard of it.
Yep.
Every comedy show I've ever been, all the jokes and all the things, but I had never actually seen Tinder. Like I didn't know what it looked like. Right. So I was like, I'm going to go on Tinder because it's going to be so terrible, because that's what everybody tells me. And that's what all the jokes I've heard in every show are saying, that it's the worst thing in the world. And I can't wait. I'm going to get so much material out of it. And I go set up this Tinder. I didn't even know what it looked like. So I just put one picture and one line because I just wanted to be able to flip through it.
Right.
In order to look through people's profiles, you have to have a profile of your own. You can't just go on and like window shop without like putting yourself in the window. So
what was your sentence?
I just wrote writer, dancer, native New Yorker. Right. I was like, okay, here it is. That's it. And let me just scroll through one picture.
Now I have to ask, you said your profile says dancer?
Yes, I love to dance.
Oh, okay.
Huge dancer.
That's fantastic. I just wanted to make sure I heard you right.
Yeah, I know people find it surprising, but I'm like really into dancing.
You're a petite person. I mean, I could see that you are a dancer. Person. Yeah.
Yeah, I love ballet but also just like all kinds of dancing.
Oh, very nice.
I dance all the time.
That's fantastic.
My biggest thing. So I start flipping through and swiping left and right, and I see this woman, and I was like, wow, it's great. She was amazing. And I read her profile. It's obvious that she was a model, and with the look of her. And then but it says in her profile that she's a civil rights attorney.
Wow.
and an Ivy League educated when I get to the bottom of the profile at that. So I'm like, okay, this is obviously bullshit, right? Like this is obviously a plumber from the Bronx who's going to show up to kill me. And
who's going to show up to kill you? Is that what you said?
Yeah. You know, like I'm like, this is obviously like some serial killer psychopath. And I can't wait. I'm going to get such great material out of it. But I'll make sure I got like some, I'm in a public place and like,
bring your mace.
Right. Yeah. And I'm like, great. So we match and I'm like, yep, of course. You plumber from the Bronx, waiting to kill me. And I go out and, in walks a model who is an Ivy League educated civil rights attorney. And that is my wife.
That's amazing.
I'm like the world's biggest asshole because that's not supposed to happen on Tinder. You're not supposed to meet a great person. You're supposed to meet a sociopathic, plumber from the Bronx who masquerades, as somebody
with a machete in their backpack.
Right.
Yes.
And so, I was not, even Chloe was ready to kill me. She's like, I've been like looking and dating for like a year and your stupid idiot ass shows up in 5 minutes and meets me. Lucky you. So, but
that's
anyway,
amazing.
So that was that. Yeah.
So that went well. And then who wanted kids first?
Oh, definitely her. I wouldn't say I was like, well, you remember now, what I wrote in the profile, which was just writer, dancer, native New Yorker. You notice I didn't put in there parent, right?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't, because I didn't know that I wanted to put that much information. I didn't know how much information people put. I didn't know that it mattered because I was like, I'm not looking to like get in a relationship. I'm just trying to fool around. I just got divorced, and so when I, on that first date, told her that I had 2 kids, she was definitely surprised.
Yeah.
Because I was one, queer. And so being queer and having 2 kids at the age of 36 in New York was rare.
Right.
She was surprised. She was like, what do you mean you have 2 kids, age 3 and 6? Like maybe people had 1 baby, by that time, and so she was surprised, but we had a really great date. And so she said to me, well, do you want a 3rd child?
Mm-hmm.
And now I feel like I'm like I'm just going to have fun. I'm just going to, and she's got that first time parent energy. So I don't have to,
Right. That's true. Wow. That's really cool.
She's so thrilled and excited. And I'm thrilled. And the kids are like crazy. I
was going to say, how do Ray and Harry feel about it?
Oh my God. They're bonkers. They're bonkers. They freaked out because Harry's finally going to get to be a big brother and he didn't think he could ever. And he was so excited. And
how many months is Chloe?
She is very new. So she did one IVF that didn't work, which, sucked. But the thing that was fun about this is she had the first one, doesn't work. She's really depressed about it, but she's like, all right, let's do it again. I was like, all right, let's do it. And she goes through the whole thing and we got to wait those days for take the pregnancy test. And I was in the middle of a Zoom, like live, and, I couldn't get up. And so she just pokes her head over by my computer screen and goes, well, I'm not pregnant, and walks away. And I see her go over to the garbage can and throw in a pee test. Now, obviously you're supposed to wait for the blood test, but she didn't. So I go over to the garbage. I'm like, who throws it out? Every woman I've ever known in this process leaves them out, right? And then marks them, right? And with the date. So I go and take it out of the garbage. And I'm like, what is she talking about? It's positive.
Oh, no, you're kidding.
I'm not kidding.
She just read it wrong? Or did it take too long to develop or something?
It took a second and she didn't understand really that she's, taken some from back, at other times in life when you got that strong reading because you were a month late in your period, whatever, right? I was like, honey, this is IVF land, okay?
Yeah.
If there's a hint,
we have hope.
Right. You have hope. I was like, because this is so early, but she didn't quite get it. So she didn't, So I'm like, wait a minute, what? And so that's how we found out. Then poor thing, she ran out to the store. She bought 100 more. Came back, and I showed her how you label the stick so that you could see that it gets a little darker every day, but it's so fucking slight, right? For IVFs. And then lo and behold, she went in, 4 days later for her blood work. And they were like, you are very pregnant, lady.
Oh my God. So what was that moment like when you got that sort of official declaration from the doctor?
It was great. It was great. I mean, she started to celebrate by like the 5th pregnancy test, but
you pretty much knew at that point.
Right. She was, I think, it was just, it's been such a thrill.
This is so exciting. I want to talk for a bit about Ray and Harry.
Yes.
And I'm going to play one more clip here.
My firstborn son is named Ray. Ray Clancy. He will punch you in the nuts. This second guy, we named him Harry. Harry Clancy. He will sell you a used Honda.
I just love that clip so much. I do want to ask about Ray and Harry. What are they like? Are they artistic? Are they writers? Are they performers? Do they dance?
Oh, God.
Tell me.
I mean, they are very different. They have the same donor, but they have different, they have different mothers.
Is Ray going to punch people in the nuts, or was that?
He's not. The thing that's funny is he is a ray of sunshine. He is. That's what his teachers call him. That he's like the sweetest, kindest person I've ever met, and I'm not even being an asshole. Like he truly is the most empathetic child I've known. And but Harry's a tough one.
Oh, that's so funny. Of course. Right? Yeah.
Yes, I know. He's mean. And so he's tough, he's chatty, he's funny.
And how do you explain it to them? And do they know they're both from a donor? And I mean, do they ask those kinds of questions?
Yes, they do. Yes. Everything. I mean, but it's, there's some fun with that too. I mean, my kids had to understand everything about that because like here, maybe my firstborn son was your son's age too. And I'm go to a playground and he's playing with some little girl and the little girl says to him, where's, something about where's your mom here, your dad here. And he's like, well, I only have 2 moms. She's like, you can't have 2 moms. Oh. And he's like, well, I do. So you can. And, they're like 2, like little. And he's too little to get it. And she maybe was like 4 or 5. And she comes over to me and she's like, I told him that you need a man and a woman to make a baby. And I was like, well, you know what? You're not half wrong, right? I was like, I said, but I can't explain all this, to you. You need to ask some of your parents about this. But so they had to know very young, right? Yeah. That where sperm comes from and where eggs come from and the many ways in which they can come together. Mm-hmm. They can tell you, they school the shit out of people when they ask. And it was never presented as anything negative. Was just like, here's the science. Here's how we're, and also just always saying like anybody, like for us, we would say, it's not just queer families that need to go for fertility. Lots of people need to go. And here's why families are made in a million different ways, and that they get that. They would say, oh no, well, you're kind of right, but you need sperm and you need an egg to make a baby.
Right.
And they can like walk you through. Like
that's amazing. Yeah, that's fantastic. And then what's next for Tara Clancy?
Yeah, I think the new baby is the project for now. And then I have a whole other life change thing going on where I've decided that I want to be a nurse. So
wow.
I've been very lucky. I've made a living as an artist for, a lot of years now. And that's been great, but it's also been a really self-focused life, literally my work is writing about myself, talking about myself, either writing or talking, but always about myself, right. It's like, I'm too much. I'm done with me. I've been a volunteer for 15 years working with the LGBT elderly.
Oh, wow.
Most of whom did not have the chance to have children like I do and are therefore very alone. They're a really, really vulnerable demographic. And I love it. When you love something so much, you do it for free.
Yeah.
It's a good litmus test, And I was like, why don't I do this? Why doesn't this become more of the focus of what I do? And I was like, this is what I want to do. So I am in the middle of nursing school, which is really intense.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I end everything this way. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I'm good. I'm glad this exists. And not that I didn't like having people in my living room asking me questions about it that I didn't know. But, I'm not kidding you,
but
Sam.
This is good
people
too.
Came to us that I don't know at all. I would get a call that was literally like my cousin in New Jersey would say, there's a lady in my office. She's a lesbian. She wants kids. I told her about you. She said she'd do anything if you would talk to her. I'd get this call from someone I'd never met. Me and Sean would say, come to our house.
Wow.
And when people ask me who want kids or thinking about it, and they'll say, they want you to sum it up real quick. And I'll say, do you know that feeling when you've just fallen in love with someone, when you're like crazy in love? It's like that, being a parent.
Yeah.
But forever. Like it's almost intense. Like, you know what?
I think you told me that when we went to dinner before the Moth. I think so, because that was May 2018. So we had our eggs frozen from the donor, and we had our surrogate lined up. And I might have been sitting next to you, but I think people started kind of mentioning their kids and stuff. And I was just used to always being the odd man out because I'd struggled for 8 years to have a kid, and it always failed. And I was like, oh, here comes the kid thing again. But I actually had something to say, which is we had the eggs, we had the... And I remember you said it's like that new love, but it's forever. And I was like, wow, and it's true. I feel it. I really do. So that's an amazing way of explaining it. So
right. I'm glad you feel that. And you didn't think I was crazy, because I'm like, but I and I know that's like an intense thing to say for people who want it, but I hope it just makes people keep trying, I know I've been through a lot of, oh my God, a million, tries and fails and a lot of money, I mean, an insane amount of money. I remember when I first sold a book and I made some money, and people said to me, especially, Queens people, say, oh, what's going to be a status symbol thing? You're going to get a car, you're going to get a Rolex, right? And I was like, motherfucker, I walk into a room holding my kid's hand as a lesbian, right? I was like, that's 60 grand walk in. Okay.
I
was like, that is my status symbol.
Right.
I was like, that is it. I was like, and like, I want people to be more honest about that. I was like, so it's worth it.
I know.
I'm ready to do another little one. I'm ready, Sam. I'm ready to do this again.
Do you have a name picked out?
I think so.
Is it a secret?
No, it's not to me, but I like Desmond.
Oh, that's an awesome name.
I think it's a good one.
That's a really good name.
Right?
Like sort of Desmond Child, or like, don't fuck with Desmond, me, Desi. You could go either way.
Desmond Tutu, whatever you
Desmond
want to do.
Tutu, Desi Arnaz.
Desi Arnaz. That was one of my,
That's awesome. Beautiful. Well, thanks, I look forward to the arrival of Desi.
All right.
I'm sure you do too.
Yes.
Well, thank you again. I really appreciate it. I'm so happy you could be a part of this.
All right, Sam, take it easy.
Awesome. Talk to you soon. All right. Thanks for hanging out with me and Tara. Her live performance excerpts were recorded in Portland, Oregon as part of the Moth. And to hear more of Tara and performances by other amazing storytellers, visit themoth.org. You can also find Tara's memoir, The Clancys of Queens, at Amazon and other fine booksellers. And I hope you're sending in your questions for therapist Savannah Sandfield. You can ask her anything as long as you get it in by November 11th. Send them to ivfupodcast@gmail.com or DM me on Instagram at ivfupodcast. The IVFU podcast is produced by me, Sam Shaber, and Emmeline Somerton. Audio mastered by Logan Heftel. Thanks to Chris Bonelli for the late night Pro Tools parties, George Straighton for marriage, and Gary Scott for greasing the wheels. IVFU is a production of Inside Voices Media. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at IVFU Podcast. You can download our theme song, Freakin' Love, at ivfupodcast.com. And we'd love for you to review us on Apple Podcasts and spread the word to anyone who might be helped by these conversations. You can also be a huge help by leaving us a tip of any size, whatever you can afford, on Venmo and paypal.me at ivfupodcast. Thank you. And thanks for listening. I'm happy we shared this time together because it's all about being a family. And